So today's topic, the top 5 questions to ask when you're dating someone and his responses, which he hasn't even heard any of these questions. So
I like cold
I'm
questions.
excited. Yeah, we're going to run it cold, see how he does if we were on a first date. And these are good first date questions, guys, and I'll tell you and I'll explain the rationale after he answers each one because it's going to be really fun to pick his answers apart.
Oh my gosh.
Let's go. All right, question number 1. So the following values are really important to me. I really value family. I really want to spend a lot of time with my family. I have a good relationship with my parents, and I want to have a big family someday. And I also really love honesty and trust and communication. So those are my values. How do you feel about those?
Family, honesty, trust, and communication.
Yeah, how do you feel about those? Because we're on a first date.
So are you asking me what I think about your values?
Yeah, how do you feel about my
Your
values?
values are good. So this is actually a great example, and I'm going to turn this around on her. See,
Wow.
that wasn't an open...
That is so good.
No.
It's an open-ended question because I'm asking you
You're
how
not-
you feel
it's
about
not-
my values.
You're asking me how I feel about your values. It's not a good question. This is why I
I'll
talk...
explain why it's a good question.
No, let me explain how you... It might be a good question. How you phrased it is horrible. So if you were asking... So here's what I'm going to take and proceed. Let me break this down. So you're asking me, these are my values. What are your values? Is that what you're asking me? Or are you asking how I just feel about your values?
I'm asking how you feel about my values.
Okay, I feel that family is important. I think that family is the only thing that will last before you're gonna die. Everyone's gonna die. So the only thing that's gonna last after you is what you leave behind. And the only thing that you can leave behind that will carry on to the future is your children. Children are the messengers to the future that you will never see. Honesty, trust, and communication. Yes, I think honesty is very important in being transparent with the person is one of the key parts to communication. I think communication is a very, very broad, communication itself. So many people don't have good communication. Like I would say, even asking questions, how you ask a question, there's also the context and the content in which you ask a question that matters. Mm-hmm. Especially with women, you have to care about the context, like how you ask it or how you respond or ask a question. Mm-hmm. And I think trust is something that is built over time and can be broken in a second.
Yeah.
So I think all those things are good. I would say if I was a woman asking that question on a date, is that I would not ask it like that. I think that's actually poorly formatted because it's very vague. It's not giving a chance again guiding. How am I going to answer that? Those are all good values. You're not asking. It's like, what do you think about each of those values?
Okay.
Like, what's your opinion on family? That's how you should communicate and ask that question.
That's a good one.
This is why one of us is actually like this. I'm street smart. She's book smart.
Well, okay. My rationale for wording it that way is because when you're on a first date, like coming out and just being like, here are my values.
It's fine.
Is very good because I think you need to be very clear and concise and you need to be to the point on a first date. Without
I think also
compromise.
how you living your values though. So like saying
we're going to get into those questions.
Yeah, because I think you're saying values just as a general statement. It's like, cool. What are values? I think it would have been better to ask like, what do values mean to you? Because that's so vague. Any guy can be like, I'm emotional intelligence. That's my value. No, I think you need to ask. When you're asking, I will tell you this, like the women who ask me good questions on dates are the ones who usually are asked on second dates. Women, if you ask me that question, it'd be like, I would be leading the conversation like I'm doing now because the question you asked was poorly formatted, just straight up.
Okay, so cool. I see your perspective there, and I didn't think about that. So
how
you
you
learn
ask
something new every day. Okay, this is how you know we're running it cold, guys. Just to be clear. Okay, so question number 2. What do you feel you offer as a partner?
Well, I definitely. So start out. Definitely offer provision. Precision. I offer precision.
I know where all the holes are, and I can get in them most of the time.
Offer precision. Okay. All right. So I do offer provision. So like I have a good job. I run 2 businesses. So to me, I'm financially stable. I have larger ambitions for my long-term finances as well. I won't go too much into that because I probably wouldn't do that normally on dating. I wouldn't tell a woman how much I make. But I would like allure to it in certain ways, right? I think also for protection, I wouldn't say it directly. It's like, obviously for me, I stay healthy. I know how to use multiple firearms. I also was in the infantry. I was in the army. I do MMA. I'm like heavily invested into like so I would say also as a father is like I'm heavily invested into my daughter's life. So I would say those are the three things basic, but then also I'm a very handy man. I like to woodwork. I know how to fix all the stuff in my car, fix it all, because I'm also, when it comes to cars, I'm very, I just don't see cars as, I think cars are an important investment. I think you should learn how to take care of the things you have, especially if they break. So I've taken care of my car for multiple years now and fixed everything on it. Along with that, I would say I'm actually a really great communicator. I see things from a 360 perspective, and I'm able to take in people's emotions and understand the context of their emotions, but I also at the same point in time can balance my own emotions very well. So which allows me to have that emotional regulation, allows me to have a very productive conversation even during tense times of conflict. So I think that's also something that I offer. Gosh, it's been a while since someone asked me this question. What else do I feel like I offer? I also, as a person, I feel like I'm very value driven, and I'm like, you always know what I'm going to do. I think for the most part, it's very easy to anticipate what I'm going to do, because if you know my values, you know how I'm going to make a decision. And like, that's generally, for me, like one of my biggest values is generational wealth or generational mindset and growth mindset. So it's like, to me as a person, I'm very open always to being able to hear things from different sides of points of view. So I am pretty open to people's different perspectives, but I'm always going to make sure I'm going to stay on my own values and drive forward towards that. So overall, I would say that's other than that, I'm really big into health and I can cook. So it's like, I mean, like, I feel like all that stuff is like pretty, like, I cook. I can manage my household.
The whole reason why this is a really good question to the intro into the tougher questions, because it gives the partner a really good opportunity to express who they are. So as the person asking this question, you really need to know what you're offering in a relationship so you can make sure that they're compatible.
Yeah, can I ask?
Absolutely. Ask it from both.
I think also that's something I don't like when women ask me questions and I ask them something in return and they give me like a vague.
You have to, oh God.
When women give me a vague response or they answer my question with a question, I almost entirely 100% of the time put them in the recreational use category.
Exactly. And this is actually something I was going to warn the men about with this question in particular. This one can get women really uncomfortable.
Oh no, it gets them mad.
It gets them mad. Like, what can you offer in a relationship?
Women are
and
like, what do you bring to the table? And women are like, I am the table. Then I'm like, bitch, get on all four legs.
And so this is a prime example of why it is a really, really good.
You just heard it.
It always takes me a minute because I'm like,
okay.
Anyways, but yeah, essentially, it's really good for men to ask this question because it shows you immediately if a woman, if she's like, bitch, I am the table, then it's like, okay, I know exactly what kind of person you are.
Yeah, it's like outside of sex, you don't really.
Yeah, outside of sex, and that's why. If you have a woman who squirms at this question, it's because what they offer is their sex. Physical appearance, body, sex. That's it.
And that's why I say to men is like, if a woman says that, it's recreational use category. If she can't answer that question and not get mad, I would just say, bro, have fun, and then just don't take it seriously.
It's absolutely within the scope of a first date to ask this question for both women and men.
You're both vetting each other.
Exactly.
You're both interviewing each other to say, hey, are we going to be a good fit for our life together?
Exactly.
So it's like, men, don't be afraid to ask that question.
Yep. That one's a really good, important intro. All right. Ooh, this is a really good one. I'm excited. Okay, question number 3. What did you learn about yourself from your last relationship?
Oh my God. Oh man. So my last relationship. So, do I have to like go in detail?
No, I mean, I answered how you would in a first date.
If I was on a first date.
Yeah.
I think actually someone did ask me this. Okay. So my last relationship, I was dating this chick. She was from Sweden. Man, so for me, it actually taught me, I learned this in this relationship, is like taking things on faith. So I have my own qualifying questions that I ask people, right? And one of the qualifying questions I ask people is like, how do you feel about family? Just like how you do. Like, do you want to have a family? Do you want to have kids? And then she had told me, she's like, oh yeah, I want to adopt. And then I was like, okay, do you want to adopt or do you want to have children? Later on, she's like, oh, I'd kind of be open to it. I don't know. I would think about it. And then she
was dodging the question.
She was dodging the question, right? So then, a couple dates later, so I was like, I don't want to be like too, to me, I'm like, I'm 30 years old, and she was like 32. So it's like, to me, she was already like past that point. She was 31 at the time, right? Okay, yeah, she was 31 at the time. She was like a year older than me. And I asked her again. I was like, hey, I need to kind of know this. And then, we got into a big argument. And she's like, okay, yes, I do want to have kids. So knowing myself, knew she was lying, right? Some part of me knew she was lying, and I really wanted to change my own behavior patterns. And my biggest behavior pattern that I want to change is like, I want to have faith in people. I didn't want to be so pessimistic about how I viewed women and humanity. So it's like, you know what? I am really going to take this on faith. And, but just like the Bible says, is, faith without works is dead. So over time, I would ask her questions about, where she wanted to be in 5 years and things like that. And we would always align until it came to that one question about family. And it would always be like gaps and holes. And then I started to realize like how she lived her life. She was not trying to make room or prepare to have, like, given like her background. So her background, she used to do modeling. She's a very attractive woman. And then she was like moving into, now she wanted to be a firefighter. So I always end up dating super feminists for some reason. I don't fucking know how, why. I like find these girls, we'll vibe and we're cool. And then it's like, she's like a super feminist. And like, that was her whole thing. She wanted to like get into firefighting and, obviously having kids, like that's something that's going to slow down your career. For me, and then it was just, hey, like we weren't compatible. So the thing that I learned in that last relationship was that I genuinely want to have faith in people, regardless of how it ended and regardless that she lied to me or withheld the truth, whatever, which way you want to say it. I want to continue to have faith in people, because I think for me, if I always go into situations looking for the negative, I'm going to find it. And it's a lot easier there's no such thing as risk-free romance. And I don't preach that to people. Like, there is always risk associated, and that was the risk I took, right? Like I had a choice and I chose to have faith and I acted on that faith, but I think God also brought it out. Like, she didn't end up beating my daughter, which was good, because then we didn't have to have like this super involved thing where she had to meet my daughter and we had like broken up or anything like that. So to me, having faith is probably the most important lesson that I've learned of dating when I'm in my 30s, is like, have faith in people. So I think for me, regardless of the situation that I go into, is that if I'm choosing to date someone, I'm gonna have faith in them.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
You answered that really, really, really well. I was a little bit worried there for a second, because this question automatically shows if this is a growth mindset type of person, because you can always learn something from your past relationships. And not only that, but is the thing you learned your own responsibility, or are you projecting the blame and the way it ended onto the other partner? Because he easily could have said, well, I learned that I need to trust my instincts, because people will tell you straight out the gate who they are, and it was her fault that she wasn't honest with me.
I chose to pursue it.
Yeah, and so that's a really good question to give insight into. Okay, is this person going to grow through mistakes, or are they going to blame me for all of the mistakes that happen? Because it's two people are completely not void of pain, not void of hurting each other. It's the human experience. We're not perfect. So it's important that you answer and that you understand, like, when you're hearing that question, you ask that question, is this person going to be growing with me through that? Okay, next question.
Sweating.
Yeah, I know. You answered that one really good, though. All right. What is your biggest challenge in relationships, and how are you working through it? Biggest challenge in
relationships. In my mind right now, the biggest challenge I have is I don't want to. So it's like, is it me personally or me like in the dating market? So I understand this.
However you perceive the question.
How I perceive that question is like, I perceive it as, and this is how I'm going to answer the question, is like, why have I have women asking this, why aren't you settled down yet? I'm like, why aren't you married yet? How are you not married yet? I'm like,
that's suspicious, like,
that's suspicious. Yeah, they're like, if you're so good, how come you're not married? I'm like, all right, well, here's like so I guess I'll answer from both sides. So in the dating market, there's not many women that I have encountered who want to complement a life. Most of them they want to do their own thing. They want to have it all, right? It's like the whole, I want to have it all. I want to have my career, I want to have family, and I want it all on my terms. So there's no sacrifice, there's no compromise in that. That's like what I've seen, even more so dating in Europe now. That's like, it's actually worse than when I was in like Montana or something like that, where people are more traditional, which I kind of like kick myself in the face about. I think that as you're getting into the dating market now, it's like there's a lot of women who are like, I can have it all and I deserve it all on my timeline. It's like, well, that's just not how a relationship works. Like, you have to compromise on some level. And along with that, most women in my mind they're not really a wife material. Like, it's like a very pragmatic, it's like, okay, you look good, I look good, and we can have 2 kids, but there's no compliment to the life. It's like, for me, I make enough money where I could have someone to stay at home or work part-time and like help build a family, which would be my most ideal, at least for like the first part of like having children, I think during that very crazy portion of the time. But like, some people are like, I'm gonna go back to work in like a week after having a baby. I'm like, what in what in the what? And also, these people have never had children either, so it's like they have no spectrum of idea of what it takes to raise a child.
Yeah.
So that's like the first part, right? And I get like a lot of that is by necessity in the culture. The other part with me is I'm very ambitious. And I know women are like, that's attractive. I'm like, yeah, you think it's attractive until you start dating me. Like, I'm very regimented. So like, I watch what I eat. I train like regularly. I work constantly. I'm like, my time is like, my quality time is like set out. So that's also one of my biggest pet peeves, is because I am so regimented that when I meet someone who wastes my time, it's like an automatic, you're like, next.
You're off, yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I know because I am very ambitious, I only allot so much time to relationships. And like, I actually don't feel that bad, because I feel like that is something I struggle with, but I also feel like the type of woman that I would want is someone who's going to complement my life. And like, I don't think 2 type A's would really work out. And I think a lot of more women today, or at least the women I attract, and maybe it's just like that similar attraction. People see like 2 type A's, so it's like they think it's going to work out that way. It's like, you're a type A and I'm a type A, so this is great. I'm like, it doesn't really work out that way, right? Like, I'm not going to constantly combat and fight with you every day of my life. Like, I want peace. So I don't know. I would say like my ambition, and then also the types of women that I have encountered, there's not many who are complementary to my life. I would say that's my biggest struggle on this individual.
Okay, so red flag alert! Red flag alert! And the reason why it's a red flag, because, okay, so the second part of that question was, how are you working through it? So it immediately shows that you did project a lot onto the faults of others for that whole question. For example, ask me the same question. What?
But you already know the questions. I feel like.
But I would. Okay, but to answer it honestly, for me.
You can't answer it honestly now. I don't want to know your answer.
You want to know my answer?
Because you've had time to think it through. You're telling me now it's a red flag. Which, okay, cool.
Well,
it might be a red
all
flag.
I'm saying is that question should be an opportunity. Hold on. The question should be an opportunity for people to recognize their own flaws and how come they have had failed relationships.
You've already told me that I've already did that in the question previously, though.
This is another opportunity to be able to be transparent and honest about your own flaws.
But it's a different question, though.
It is, yeah.
So, okay, so you're saying that now I can do it in one term, but in the same now I'm not, so it's a red flag?
So what I'm saying is, the previous question was, what did you learn about yourself? So you did learn about yourself, but then you never talked about how you're working through your own challenges from past relationships.
That's not past relationships. We're just talking about the
what's
current.
your biggest challenge in relationships, and how are you
like the
working through
current?
it?
I told you I was answering this in the current dating market, like what I feel like I challenge with. So I'm talking about like current dating market, not past relationships. So it's not really
your current challenges with relationships, you took
in
it
the
as
dating market.
In the dating market.
Like settling
the challenges
down.
you find.
I said in the context of settling down.
Yeah.
So how's that a red flag though?
I mean, I just think it didn't take you didn't take ownership for the ways that you might be turning off people to having a relationship with you. Because you don't think there are any. I mean, that's the root.
Like I said, like I already told you, like one of the things that is, I think women don't take into account. I think they think ambition is sexy until you're with an ambitious person. You realize like they're working a lot.
Yeah, but like how you're working through that, you're not working
make
through
time.
it. You're doing the same thing.
I make time for people. I just don't make time for everyone.
Now you're saying that.
No,
now
I said that. No, you're so full of shit. Anyways, bitch.
You're just mad that you got a question wrong. Well, not wrong, but guys, for real. That question is really good
I
at
don't think it's a red
understanding the
flag.
authentic. He doesn't think it's a red flag. Comment below if you think it's a red flag. But I think that either way, that question is really good at understanding that person's psyche on if they are working through challenges that they have had in relationships. So, moving on.
I'm gonna give you some questions.
You should. I'd like that. Give me them questions. Okay.
How
So
many people
last
have
but
you
not
slept
least, one. Last but not least, what is your ideal? Damn it. Yeah, exactly. All right. What is your ideal vision for a relationship?
Oh man, I feel like I'm kind of alert to that now, but I'll say it again. To me, given the circumstances of what we live in, I would like to find somebody, be in a committed relationship with them, have children, preferably depending on the age. It really just depends on the age, but if you're like closer to the age, like I do not want to take on the risk of having complications or going through in vitro and things like that when you're perfectly fine kids now. But I get it. I'm not saying like a woman has to pop out babies, but I think like for me, it's like for me, starting a family is very important to me. So I guess traditional vision or it'd be some ideal would be somewhat traditional on the front end, and then either choosing to do part-time work after that, or if she really wants to go back to full-time work, that'd be fine, as long as we're able to make sure like the household we're raising children in a good environment. Because I think that to me is like the most important thing, where it's like I think those first 5 years or those first like developmental years are very important, especially like having parents present, and then going back into the work field, that's fine. I don't really care, but I would definitely want my children to, if you're going to start a family, at least have the responsibility.
At least make that a really big priority.
Yeah, to raise them right. Yeah. And then to me, after that, I honestly could give two craps. Like if you want to like go work or, start your business, I don't care. And then to me, I guess like for me, ideally, I just want a woman who can communicate. Like, gosh, there's so many things that I want, but I've like brought it down to like the three of where it's like, it's just like healthy. She can communicate and she can be like feminine and somewhat peaceful.
In terms of like the feminine gender role.
Yeah, like I say feminine gender role in the sense of like peaceful, non-argumentative. I don't have time for that. I don't want to be working as much as I do and have to argue with someone. Like it just makes no goddamn sense. And I think that, so stay as healthy because I'm a healthy person, and then communication, because I think when we look at the divorce rates, like the number one thing is like communication. So I guess also growth mindset. That would also be another big one, because I think you can communicate well, but I think being able to move past your problems, that's growth mindset. So I guess like, yeah, that'd be something similar. Is like growth mindset, communication, feminine woman, healthy, and then wants to start a family. That'd be like my very ideal sense, because I think as long as the two big ones, communication and growth mindset, if you have those two and you're healthy, like you can pretty much make it work, right? Like I can't really see a problem that you would run into that you can't work through. Because I think the most issues that we have is people don't know how to communicate and they don't know how to grow. They're like, you should just love me for who I am. And it's like, no, you grow. Like people grow regardless. You're not the same person you were when you were 21, you were 18 or 15. You grow. You just grow together. And that's the agreement that you make when you're married to someone, you have a long-term relationship with someone. It's like you're going to grow together. But, I mean, of course, fuck it all and do whatever you want. But
Mm-hmm.
that to me is my ideal. It's like I would grow with someone who had the same vision for life, and then just kind of like pop smoke when times get tough. So.
Aww. So that was a good, really good response. And the reason why this question, I saved it to the last, and it's super important, is because you need to compare what has been said throughout the entirety of the date to this one moment.
How'd I do?
Great. Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty on par with what I want and what I like.
Exactly. Your wants and your ideal relationship. I mean, all the things that you've said prior to that fit.